You are listening to a Called Collective podcast, where we seek to equip the next generation of ministry leaders. To learn more about the Called Collective, visit our website at thecalledcollective.org or check us out on Instagram at The Called Collective.
Welcome to Week 5, Episode 5 of the Coffee and Calling podcast. We are so happy to have all you back. Of course, me and Griffin appreciate you so much. And Griffin, you want to give this high five thing? See if we can make it
First
the
try.
loudest one.
That one was pretty dang
I think
good.
that's boost up the audio for that one, Tyler. Please.
Yeah, edit that.
Edit that. Make it sound loud. But Griffin, can you introduce our special guest for today?
I would love to. We are joined today by Pastor Forrest Brown. He's a pastor of Exit Church in Gas City. Forrest, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm Forrest, and I like Griffin said, I co-lead a church in Gas City named Exit Church. I'm married. Danielle's my wife. We have our first child, just hit one in July, Eden.
So cute.
It's a lot of fun. This is a confession. I thought I was going to be a terrible dad until the kid could play chess. And then I thought, I'm in. Okay, tag me in. Yeah. But now that
I can do this.
Yeah. Because before I had a kid, if you hand me a child, I would honestly say no, thank you. And I'm not trying to be rude. And I love kids. It's just I don't trust myself with something. I'm gonna drop this thing, person. So yeah, yeah. But when it's yours, man, it's different, and it's just so much joy. I was actually telling my wife last night, I was genuinely looking forward to the next day because she's gonna be laughing.
Oh.
She's even crying. I thought that would be a problem. It's the best because you get to comfort your kid and she'll snuggle in and just. Anyways,
Yeah,
that's about me.
that is.
It kind of reminds me, I'm also married, and everyone inevitably keeps asking, when are you going to have kids?
Oh, boy.
My family is the most egregious culprits. Hey, I'm ready to be a granddad. Or my daddy's like, I'm ready to be a grandfather. He's like, when are you guys going to have kids? You got free babysitting over here. Lisa can watch your kid. I'm like, no, I'd like to pay off some student loans first. And right now we're dog sitting for them. If I can't handle watching a dog for 6 days.
That's true. If you can't handle a dog, you probably shouldn't take on a person.
Take on a human being.
Nope.
Yeah.
I'm not ready.
When you talk about the crying thing, this is so bad, but I can't control it. But anytime a baby bursts into tears, I just start laughing because it's the most out of nowhere. But they'll fall and they'll hesitate. They'll just be sitting there.
Does this hurt or not?
And then they'll think they'll be like, okay,
I'm gonna cry.
it's just and sometimes it's the most random thing, and I'm like, what is? And I just I guess it's the birth, almost like a knee-jerk reaction of just, oh my gosh, that's hilarious. But I'm sure, like you said, if it was my own child falling on the ground, I wouldn't be like, oh God.
Well, it's funny you say that. I don't usually laugh, but there was a time recently that I felt terrible for laughing. But so I was getting the tub ready, and she can walk around. We have it kind of baby-proof, so we can let her, take ours off her for 10 seconds at a time, which is a new thing. Well, she runs away from me into her bedroom, and it's dark in there. And so I turn around to go get her. Mm-hmm. And in the time between when I turned around to go get her and when she went to the bedroom, she found my wife's shorts and she put them on her face, which she's like to do this now. And then and they're black. And then she walks around blindfolded, essentially. Oh, and she walks right into a wall and falls over. And there's a pause, and it was a little funny. I'm not gonna lie. I felt terrible about it, and she was okay. She was okay. She was. It wasn't if it was a big hit, it's not funny. But anyway, I will tell you that I will warn you though. If you laugh when your child cries, you might feel fine, but your wife might not feel fine.
Oh yeah, I know.
And so you need
public enemy number one.
You maybe need
that.
to look her in the eye and get the Can
I laugh?
Just hold it.
Yeah.
Is this okay?
Yeah.
Okay. I won't be laughing when it's because they pooped their pants. I'll tell you that. I'll be like, gosh, dang
my goodness.
That's not as bad as I thought. I'll be honest. My wife showed me these videos of dad changing diapers and gagging or throwing up. Mm-hmm. And so far, there was one time where that was a poop soup situation where it bubbled over, and there was no way to do it without getting in.
Yes.
But other than that time, I think I've been pretty good. It's been good. Yes.
When that happens, I'll keep those long gloves that people wash dishes in. I'll keep those on lock and just All right, time to change the diaper.
Honestly, I think you're probably going to have at least half a dozen times before they hit one where it's just like, you know what we're going to do? We're just going to go into the shower. Like
Rinse this off.
just like
stick 'em in.
like hazmat situation.
This ain't even.
Yeah.
There's actually this funny story where my dad loves telling people this like story about me, but I think I was like 9 years old. And I go to the bathroom and I remember doing this, but my dad thinks it's the funniest thing. But I went to the bathroom and it was like one of the first times I had like one of like the biggest like poops of my life. And I straight up took a shower afterwards.
Yeah.
And I come out, my mom goes, "Did you take a shower?" And I'm this 9-year-old kid, like super like little chubby fella and everything. I'm like, "Yeah, it was so bad. I dropped a nuke in there. I had to clean myself after that." And my parents just are rolling on the floor.
I would be too.
Yeah, that's great.
But make sure, Tyler, make sure to put the graphic content on the advisory this time.
Boy.
You know,
Trigger warning, poop.
yes. But how have you enjoyed your time since like coming in, being in the Grant County kind of community, or Gas City community?
Yeah, it's been great. I would say it's been a high time for Danielle and I, and largely because of the Shirleys. They're just great people. I work with Tyler Shirley and his wife Andrea. They're obviously a team, and it just is awesome to do ministry with them and to do life with them. We get together every other Tuesday just to connect with our families, and it's just been a real joy to do ministry with them. Don't get me wrong, my wife and I grew up in Utah, and so there's like both of our immediate families are out there having a kid, and then right when we were having a kid, COVID hit, and so you couldn't like have as much people come out and visit. It's just a little different feeling, and so and everyone feels a little isolated during COVID. So there's been some downsides, but I would say that overall it's been a sweet season. We love it here. We love the people. We love the community. We love the church. We love the work. And at the end of the day, too, I guess this does segue in, but we feel called here, and so even if I didn't feel that way, but I did feel called, we would be here until it was really obvious.
Before we hop into your calling story in its fullness, I'd like to ask a question. If you could have coffee with any biblical character other than Jesus and just sit down and talk with them, who would you pick and why?
There is quite a bit.
Yeah, well, I'm debating between if I couldn't sit down with Jesus, I probably would pick Peter, and the reason being is because I think Peter's the closest to Jesus, and so I would love to just be able to sit with him and just talk about, okay, you had 3 years of being like best buds with God of heaven. So how did that? What was that like? You know what I mean? Like,
what was it really like?
Yeah, like I want to know everything about that. Like, what did you not write down? Not even a
snore.
Yeah.
Not even like the theology, but like just like your friend Jesus. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, what were the in between moments like?
Just go fishing together.
Sense of humor. Yeah. I would love to just hear Peter kind of gush about Jesus, and I imagine he would. And so I think that'd probably be how I choose it. I was debating between that. Like, there's other people you could talk to about like the deep things of the faith, and which I love, but I don't know. I think what the Lord has given us is sufficient, but I wouldn't mind having an insider into.
Yeah, it's better than my answer. I said Pilate.
Pilate, interesting.
I wanted to see, like, did he have like a oh no moment? Dan said it in that. What do you mean he's gone? What do you mean this don't? Where's the body?
What
are you talking about?
What do you mean Jesus is gone? What are you talking about? I thought I washed my hands of that. Like, what are we doing?
We'll leave that in episode.
Well, you imagine his wife being like,
I told
you. Remember when I had that dream?
Yeah.
That's what I said.
That's why
I love like
happy wife, happy life.
I love how you said that about Peter though. Because I often think this is something over the summer that I really wrestled with, is the aspect of those disciples, and especially like you said, Peter. But when Jesus ascends and the angel looks at him and says, "Why are you still looking at the sky? Like, go and be." And at that wrestling season of not just their teacher leaving them, but their friend. leaving them, and how many times I think maybe they would sit there doing ministry, and Peter just going, man, I just wish my buddy Jesus was here. Like, it's almost like I sit there like the endearing friendship of like when I'm far from some of my best friends, like I'll sit there and be like, man, they always support me this way really well, and I just wish they were here with me. And like, yeah, just Peter having that friendship with Jesus and knowing him like deeply like that, like, man. And that might even be just a call for us to have like that type of relationship with Jesus. Obviously, he's not on this earth walking around in that human form right now, but in the sense of, Lord, like I really desire your presence as much as I would desire my greatest friend. So
I think sometimes people have a difficulty seeing Jesus as a friend. I think that's something that might be a little bit lost. Just like the intimacy that would be available to you, and like that connection of knowing Jesus, like better than the best friend you can think of. I mean, better than you would know Grant, knowing Jesus more than you know Tyler, and having that friendship, like that genuine, like, yes, you are my Lord, you are my God, but you're also like my best friend. And like how would that dynamic change like the church today? That's something I wonder about sometimes. But yeah.
Yeah, it seems like it's easy to think of Jesus as an idea only, not as a person.
Wow.
It'd be nice. One of the privileges I think of being in ministry on the road with Jesus is you can't forget that he's a man and he's a person in front of you. Like the humanity of Jesus is like always right in front of you. Yeah. That being said, I would also love to hear. I just, when I read the stories of the text, I just have to imagine that they just always felt so uncomfortable with Jesus. Like, doesn't matter what Jesus, like he's either healing on the Sabbath or he's turning over tables at church or he's railing on the Pharisees or he's touching people with contagious diseases. And you're like, I'm sleeping next to this guy. It's always something. I imagine they were just like, yeah, it took about 18 months, but I imagine they're saying something like that.
Warmed
like,
up eventually.
You just kind of go with the flow. He's just going to do whatever he's going to do. And eventually you figure out, even if it's awkward on the front end, it's going to work out because it's Jesus. What we were just in a Texas last Sunday where Jesus crashes a funeral. And then he starts by telling the grieving mother, don't cry, which I'm like, I just can't imagine saying that to someone at a funeral. Don't cry at your own child's funeral. And I imagine her being like, who are you? You have you're crashing my funeral with a huge number of people with you. And then he goes and talks to the dead person as if they're going to respond. And I remember, if I don't know Jesus yet, I'm just thinking like, that isn't how this works.
This guy's got 1,000 people.
Yeah. And then the next thing you know, you're like, no. Yeah.
Someone, Dave Smith, one of our professors here, was breaking down to us one time the flow of like plot in the one section. Oh man, I'm blanking on it right now. But pretty much it's when Jesus, they first see him walk on the water.
Yeah.
And they're like, whoa, what's that?
And he asks to keep going.
And then they keep going.
Yeah.
And then they go to the island where the demon-possessed man is with like legions. And then he then proceeds to cast out the legion into a herd of pigs that runs off a cliff and into the water, pigs, and kills themselves. And then I'm just thinking of the disciples seeing this, like, what is going on right now? And then the people come running out like, you need to leave. You need to leave. Like you said, like this just like, whoa, that's like just getting used to being around this figure of like, whoa.
It's just like never a dull moment, always on your toes, never real comfortable. I mean, even if you're Peter, right? Who am I? And eventually you get around to Peter and Peter's like, you're the Lord, you're the Christ. He's like, that's right, great answer. I'm gonna go die. He's like, no, that's not Satan, right? And it's like, that turns so fast for me.
Still, my favorite is when they ask him about the one parable, and he's like, "Why are you still so dull? Do you not get this, man?" Like,
in my mind, I imagine Jesus doing like the face palm, like kind of a lot. Like,
how did you get this?
That is
all right.
Well, Forrest, we'd like to ask you, for you, kind of your journey into this call to ministry. I know we said this a little bit before the podcast, but this called collective goes out to pretty much like the main like audience we kind of seek is like high schoolers or people that are wrestling with their call to ministry and people that are just kind of walking into it. And this is just an opportunity for us to have people come on and share their calls into ministry and their walks. So these students can like see that like they're not alone in whatever setting there is, that people have walked where they have walked and everything right now in their life. So we just want to ask you, like, what is your call to ministry and what was kind of like those events leading up to it?
Sure, yeah. I kind of think of my call to ministry on two separate rails, like a train running on two rails. And the first starts with kind of a confession, if I'm being honest. And essentially, I was involved in church really young, and for whatever reason, the Lord has just been good to me in that I just remember the stories. So, like, I remember the text just fine. I remember being in Sunday school, and it was like my second year in Sunday school, and we were learning about Noah's Ark again. And I'm like, we literally talked about this last year. And and I would come to find out that they talk about Noah's Ark every year, which is, I mean, fine. But for me, it was like, so it's always been, I always just retained all that. I was involved. We had a 3-year confirmation program in my church, and it was an amazing youth group in my church. The guy that mentored me, Jeff Stevenson, amazing man, Fedge. This is his name backwards. You went by that. And
That's awesome.
yeah. And so I went through the confirmation program for 3 years, and then that's 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. Then 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, you mentor the people going through confirmation. So I did all that. And then I was in college, and I was still hanging out with high school students, mentoring the same ones I've been pouring into for a while. So I had like a corporate rhythm of engaging with the church that was robust. I think people would look in and say that. But I don't think I had healthy private rhythms of like being in the Word with a consistency that was like I could be confident and proud of. And I also didn't feel like it was alive to me. And so this is where the confession comes in. I remember I was at church one Wednesday night by myself in the sanctuary, and I had a crush on this girl for years, and it wasn't working out, right?
Ugh.
But then we were hanging out a little bit more. And at the same time, I'm kind of like doing what a lot of people do in this age. Like, Lord, what do you want from me? Like, what do you want from my life? And I was sitting there playing the piano by myself. It's like me and the Lord time. And that girl walks in. And it was a sign, right?
God, this is it.
Yeah. I was wrong. Well, I in hindsight, I would say that God is tricking me and do what he really wanted me to do. This is the way to get what he wants from me, right? Yeah. So anyways, fast forward, things are going great with her as friends. And we'd hung out like a week and a half every day. And then we hadn't hung out this like 9th day in a row. And she calls me and said, hey, will you come over to my house? I want to talk to you about something, but I kind of want to talk to you about it in person. And I thought she was going to tell me that she liked me. And I got to her house, and she said, kind of nervously, like, I was just wondering if you would maybe want to be my accountability partner. and I was like,
oh man.
Yeah. Of course I would. Yeah. You know, they're just like not in the Word every day. And, you know,
this is like a whole different world right now. Like you get friend zoned, like you.
Oh yeah, it was
accountability zone.
yeah. It was. She ended up dating my brother. Is the truth. Yeah.
Yes.
Anyways, I'll tell you what. Over the next 6 months, I could have counted on one hand the days I missed reading the Bible because I'm going to talk to her about that. I don't think that we ever had accountability conversation ever after that. By the way. But in that time of like reading it every day, a bunch of things happened. The first, a bunch of things clicked for me. I think the first one really was I've been reading the text and I'd find something that bumped into the culture of the church I was in, and I just assumed that if there was conflict between the text and the culture of my church, that my leaders they just knew better than me, in that I just wasn't getting it right. And then something clicked where I thought maybe the culture around me isn't right and the text is just right. And maybe it means what it says. And when that happened, man, it came to life.
Wow.
So that was one thing that happened. And then the next thing I realized was I had been reading the Bible like a Twitter account and not like a book, right? Like I was confused on why this book isn't that big. How can I read the Harry Potter series in like a month and a half, which is like a amazingly large amount of content. And yet I can't seem to like make my way through the first 5 books of the Bible. Like what is wrong? And I realized that I wasn't reading them the same. I was enjoying the story of these other books I was reading, but I wasn't like engaging with the story. And so I started to read it a bit quicker, like a story, and get to know the people. And it was awesome. So many things came to life, like what we're talking about now, like where you realize like, oh, wow, it would be hard to follow Jesus because he would do things that upset people and you're always with them. Like, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway, so these things are happening and I'm in this rhythm of reading the Bible every time, all the time. And this girl's faded out in a but I'm still reading. And
Mhm.
eventually, I remember there was a week or maybe a week and a half where I want to say one person every day from different spaces. Like the guy that I'm buying bagels from says, "So, you're a pastor, right?" Or someone else, some random person would be like, "Hey, are you gonna be a pastor?" Or then someone at my church would say, "I think you should be a pastor." And the first day that this happened, I remember saying, "No, no." And then by like the seventh time this happened, from all different people, not like they knew each other, I said, like, I kind of threw my hands up, like, I guess I'm gonna do that. That was so that was the one reel. But the truth is, I'm more stubborn than that. So I think I felt called at that time, but I didn't like take action on that. But all the while, I'm volunteering with high school students, working with my church, and we called them our kids. And it was pretty about to go on the summer retreat, and a few months, maybe a month or two before that retreat happened, one of our kids, I got a call at like 2 a.m. that one of our kids had taken his own life. And that sucked. And I worked at Chase Bank at the time. And I was carpooling with somebody. And so I needed to drive them up to the branch because their car was up there. And I drove them up. I let them know what's going on. Got him to the office, let my boss know, drove back home, changed back into my casual clothes. I was driving to church. And I remember what I was thinking. What I was thinking was, I don't know if I can take tomorrow off too, because it's not technically immediate family. And then I interrupted my own thought process and thought, what are you doing? It just doesn't matter. Like who cares about the bank? Like this is real stuff that's happening.
Yeah.
And that week I kind of had to recalibrate my life and ask, okay, what's important to me? What am I actually doing in my time? And I said, here's what's important. If God is real, he's got to be number one. And then he gets to set the agenda if he's number one. So then after that, it's like people, right? Immediate family, maybe the church, friends, even enemies. And then after that, it's like self-sustaining behaviors, eating, drinking, sleeping, working. And then I said, what am I doing in my time? And what I found out is eating, sleeping, drinking, working was easily number one. And then it was friends and family and enemies and people. And then it was church stuff, even though I was like, by all accounts on the outside, looking really committed. And I realized my life was was literally totally upside down from what I said was important to me. That still wasn't enough. I went to that retreat that summer, and it was the last full day of camp. And I won't say his name on the podcast, but there was a young man there who, when I was in high school, I would have not liked this guy. He would low ride his pants, didn't respect authority, didn't respect women, and but he was having a hard time at camp. I could tell he wasn't connecting. And it was the last day of camp, and I'm a leader, so I went out and sat down with him, and I remember sitting down and saying, "Hey man, how's it going?" He's like, not that great. I said, is it that are people being too authoritative with the rules and kind of like a constant killjoy? And he's like, no, it's actually better in that regard than usual. Like, oh, well, what's up? And he said, I think the point of these camps is the main message at night. And I just feel like it doesn't connect. I just don't feel like it's connecting with me. And I remember feeling like such an idiot. Like that's a great answer.
Yeah.
I had assumed way off base. And then the bell rang to go to the last final service. We go. Guy preaches, the music starts, worship starts, or praise music starts. And I remember praying, Lord, use me. And there's that same young guy sitting in the back. So I went and sat with him. How about tonight? And he's like, nah. And I knew that he was in between party culture and church culture, right? And I'd seen a lot of my friends fall off the boat to party culture, a lot. And I remember thinking, like, I asked him, are you going to come back? He said, probably not. And I said, can I pray for you? He said, yeah, sure. But before I could start praying for him, my mind was racing. My mind moves kind of fast. And I was thinking about the kid that took his own life and this guy and how he was given up to. And I know maybe he's not earnestly seeking, but like he's taking a week out of his summer and his friends aren't here. And you said, ask, seek, and knock. And I don't get it. And my heart broke for this kid. And I started bawling. And I'm not really an emotional person. You can ask my wife about that. And I couldn't pray for him. I couldn't say a word. I was just like a mess. And I eventually was like, sorry. And he looked at me like, weirdo. And he got up and left. And then I sat there by myself and cried my eyes out for this kid for like 2 songs straight until I realized I wouldn't even like this kid. But my heart's in this. Like I love these kids. And so immediately upon getting back from camp, I told my youth pastor over and said, hey, I think I'm supposed to be doing this. I'm all in. I quit my job. I moved out of my apartment, moved back in with my folks. Took a job back in the movie theater I used to have, working with high school students. And I leaned in like full-time volunteer mode.
Wow.
And kind of never looked back. So that was the deal. And by the way, it was 10 years later when I finally could do vocational ministry.
Holy cow.
So I did 10 years of like bi-vocational just every spare minute on all the margins, all in. That's the story. That's kind of long. I feel bad. I took a
No,
that
that's
was
okay.
incredible. That was incredible. Wow. So like, that's something really unique. I want to just talk about that last part, the whole doing 10 years of bi-vocational ministry. When we think of like, kind of like, I'm saying this for anybody listening from the academic world of someone who gets called into ministry. You know, you go to college, you do your 4 years, and then you get ordained within some denomination and everything. But you have this unique route where you were like, you know what, I know I'm supposed to be doing this. And I know even like you were doing it here. I mean, in the spot that you were at and everything. So it's like, so I'm just going to, you know, quit this job and then kind of go all in with the ministry stuff, which is amazing and awesome. And I would just like want you to like, almost like a question of like, you know, how do you think that really formed you those 10 years? Like going into that 10 years of how
so
doing
much.
bi-vocational. Yeah.
Yeah. So many things happened in those 10 years. I got married, for one, but so I should say this is in Utah. So there literally is 0 seminaries in Utah.
Oh yeah.
0 Christian seminaries. So there isn't the same kind of opportunity of like being in the Midwest, in terms of going the track that you just mentioned.
Wow.
And so when I first felt called, I thought I literally sat down and thought there are 2 tracks into ministry. There's the track of you just start doing ministry until eventually you have ministry experience sufficient to just get going and do the work, do the work in a vocational sense. The other lane is to do what you just described. You go through the academic lane, you get the credentials. And I was a bit of a cynic. So the time I said my attitude was, you get a piece of paper that says I've read the Bible, and then you can actually teach it. And that's, I was reading in Acts, and I was reading about the Sanhedrin, looking at the apostles and Peter and John, and saying, look at these ordinary, unschooled men, and yet they've been with Jesus. And I was thinking, that's the track I want. And it didn't exactly work out that way. So maybe that's like a short version of what could be a long story. I tried to break into full-time vocational ministry for a while, and it just didn't work. And I think at first I was a little bit bitter about that. I had a number of friends that did get into ministry. Even friends, by the way, that like are losing the faith right now, if I'm being honest.
Oh, wow.
People that I love dearly, but they were somehow getting vocational jobs, and like I wasn't. But at the same time, God did such amazing stuff. I started working with these middle school students whom I love. I still see them as my kids, and just like amazing opportunities in ministry, fruit, like good fruit coming out. And I grew a ton. I had the opportunity to like build content for middle school students, build content for high school students, build content for college students, lead services for each of those age groups.
Wow.
In that same time, the Lord used me to start a homeless ministry, which became a young adult ministry, which I learned a ton from that. And I didn't even set out to do that. I just was feeling like, man, God says love the poor, and I don't even know a single person who probably qualifies. And so, and then I was also in this same season, by the way, because I'm reading the Bible thinking maybe my church culture is wrong, it's easy to feel jaded. Like, and you can almost run on that fire for a while. And it's not great fuel to use though long-term for ministry. So, and I figured that out in that season as well. And the whole time I'm working at the movie theater full time. And when I go on retreats and things with the youth, I lose hours. And so I've got to go use a credit card. So I'm floating on credit card debt. And after, I think it was about 4 years, I maxed out and I had to change gears. And so I did have to go to school, but because there's no seminaries in Utah, I needed to get a bachelor's degree in something. My father, who lived across the country from me, he called and offered to pay for me to go to undergrad, but he wanted me to get a degree that had a backup plan. So I got a degree in business while doing ministry on the side. While I'm in college, I got asked and invited to help with a church plant as like a co-pastor or assistant pastor, although he didn't like the assistant title. But he was the lead. He was getting paid full time, and I was volunteering as a pastor. And I learned a ton in that season about what it means to lead a community and create a culture, and the hour demand to actually shape a culture in a way that's positive. And by the way, I think bivocational is great, but this is one of the major downsides is it does take a lot of energy and time to shape a culture. And one of the functions of being in leadership and ministry is to do that.
Mm.
So, and then I got a job. Literally, I got married the day after my last final in college, in my undergrad. Literally the day after.
Wow.
And yeah,
It's an exciting spring
That's
semester.
2 days.
it was a crazy time. And then a couple months after that, I got a job at a tech startup, and I felt like Joseph in prison for the first year of that job. Like, no, my colleagues hated me, and I had to just head down and work as hard as I could. But then, like Joseph, the CEO just noticed me, and the C level of that company noticed me, and I got promoted and promoted and promoted, so that in like a 9-month span, I went from entry level to VP of operations of that company, making way more money than I ever thought I would make, and enough money that my 19-year-old self would look in and want to smack me, because it was like, he was like, woe to the rich, Jesus is clear, right? So that was, but at the same time, I learned so much in the business sector about culture shaping, because so much of the energy, especially on like the startup side of the world right now, is about culture creation. Netflix had just come out with their culture statement, which was like the hottest thing coming out of Silicon Valley at the time. I don't know if you've read that. And so I learned a ton about culture shaping from working in the business sector, and all the while getting the experience of church planting, getting the experience of home parachurch ministry, getting the experience of youth ministry, content creation, preaching. And then lastly, I learned it's really, really hard to balance the Christian life in the West, because the West vocationally is demanding. And it's gone are the days, I think, where 40 hours a week is the normal. And so I learned a ton. I learned a ton of that season. Came out here actually still on the vocational track, bi-vocational track. I came out here. My wife and I both moved to Grant County because we were offered jobs at Tree of Life. And it just so happened that God orchestrated it in such a way that the guy who owned the company that I was working for also started a church locally, and he eventually asked me to quit working for him at the company to work for him at the church. And then a few months later, he stepped down, and Tyler and I co-lead Exit. So now, only recently have I been really vocational. So did that answer the question you had?
Yeah.
Okay.
That did answer the question.
Yeah, that's amazing. So if there's anything that you could tell 19-year-old Forrest from the perspective that you have now, specifically regarding like a call to ministry, what would that advice be? And this can apply to, any high schooler who might be in like a similar situation, who feels called into ministry.
Yeah. I think, so I would point first to a few texts. And this is going to sound funny, but I recognize I want to model, even for myself, how do we get to truth, and so I'd first go to the text and say, okay, so look at these major characters in history. Moses has, 40 years in Egypt, 40 years in the desert. It's like he's and then he goes and starts leading people. By the way, for another 40 years in the desert.
Yeah.
Abraham gets the calling to bear children, and it's another 40-year gap. Jesus has 33 years in this earth. Only 3 of them are public ministry. And to not despise the Lord's seasons of preparation is the first thing I'd say. And the second I would say is a student who is fully trained will be like his teacher. Having good answers is not what it means to be in ministry. Be the kind of man that you would hope to make in someone else, so that when you go stand before the Lord and are held accountable for making those kinds of people, you can have your head up.
Wow.
Because if you have great answers and you feel like you're ready to go teach, but your rhythms of your life aren't the kind of rhythms you'd want to see happen normatively in the church, then you're not ready. And the last thing I'd say is be faithful to what God has immediately in front of you. And don't look 10 steps down the road and be like, why can't I do that yet? Essentially what I would say is, yes, you're called to a destination and to something. You're also called to all the steps on the way. A calling is not a destination simply. Your whole life is going to be producing something that you have to answer to the Lord for. And you need to be faithful on each of the successive steps. I mean, you might say it like this: King David was certainly called to be king, but he also needed to be a son and a brother and a musician and a warrior and a servant. He needed to be all those things. not only in order to be a good king, because he does certainly draw from that stuff, but just to be the kind of man that God has him to be. And so, yeah, I would essentially look at my younger self and say, learn how to be content and be faithful with what's in front of you.
Mhm.
Your life is what you're called to at the end of the day.
Yeah. And the way we kind of like before we we'll ask you how we can pray for you, but before we get to that, the one thing we like to end with is me and Griffin will give you affirmations based off of everything we heard within your story and things that like kind of seeing the character of God within your life as you've been talking. Um, and one big affirmation I want to give you is that what you have expressed to a lot of people that are listening is that l- fall in love with the process. And what I mean by that is the contentment of realizing what the Lord is forming us as we are processing. Sometimes it can be like, I want to get to this stage. I want to start doing this. And we want to do that before we're formed into that likeness of Christ to be able to go and do these things that we call ministry. And the one thing I want to affirm is it seems like God is forming you and preparing you for the ministry you might do years from now and later down the road. And I think you going through that bivocational process humbled you in a way really beautifully, like the Lord humbled you in a way to really love what you're doing beyond, having the like lead position, beyond, getting to a certain position or getting to a certain pay in ministry, but it was generally because you just had this heart and this passion. And that Charlie says this great, one of our professors, Charlie Alcock, says this great statement about culture. And he's like, culture bleeds. Culture is something that when we set it and everything, it is something that people can see that has life in it itself. And that just seems what you desire for your ministries, and you desire for people to know the word in that way, and you desire for growth. And students, even me, like I'll tell you this, as you were talking, I've just been blessed by what you're saying, because it's like, don't don't neglect the process. See how much it's growing and see how much when the timing is right for you to begin doing those things, it's going to be that. But appreciate that a time like this, God is preparing you. And yeah, even I needed to hear that today. So yeah.
Just want to affirm the intentional care you put into discipling those that are placed before you. I just think like you're mentoring me leading up to when I preached the exit for my preaching practicum. That care and dedication, like you said, it's not enough to have the right answers, and like you make sure to foster that in the people you disciple and leading them down a path where they know how to find the truth for themselves, to look at different teachings and to analyze them, and to you train them to train good disciples, and like that's not in vain. And I know you're going to keep doing that. And like that's honestly something that I want to emulate as well as I move into ministry next year as well. So
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
No problem. How can we pray for you before we head out?
Yeah. Pray that my little girl knows Jesus. That'd probably be the biggest thing. Yeah, that's everything I can. But I think that's like the most recurring thing. I'll tell you what. Our prayer life has been way better being a dad. So maybe you could as a tertiary bit that the culture of my home would foster a walk with the Lord. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, Lord, we just come to you now, and we thank you so much that Forrest was able to come on to our show, Lord, and just share his call to ministry. Number one, just thank you for all that you have done in his life, Lord. You have refined this man. And I know that the man we have sitting before us is an example of your work, Lord. And God, I just pray for his daughter, Eden. Lord, may she, as she grows up and her parents begin to parent her, and as the culture of their household begins to foster, Lord, I pray that her mom and dad are just examples of you and that you use that, Lord, or whatever else that might be surrounding her, but that leads her into having a desire to have a relationship with you, Lord, that she knows you, that she understands how deep, how wide, how great truly the love of the Lord is. God, may she now, just as she's growing up, may I pray that she knows a life where she constantly has seen the work of the Lord and she understands how amazing you are, God. And Lord, for Forrest, as he just is a father to her, and God, what an example, what a call that fathers can be, that Lord, you set the perfect example of what it means to be a father, that someone could equally be our father, but also be our best friend. And that's something that in our culture, so many people have a hard time balancing. But Lord, I pray that Forrest, even he says that his prayer life has just gotten better and better because of being a dad, that within him that begins to set a fire in his soul to be more like you, Lord. And again, that when Eden sees her dad or sees her mom, that she just doesn't see Danielle, or she doesn't just see Forrest, or she doesn't just see mom, she doesn't just see dad, but your face shines upon them. And Lord, I know that when we see your face, when we see that light, it can change our whole entire lives. So Lord, I just pray that. Lord, we love you so much. Thank you for days like this where we get to just celebrate what you have done. Lord, we love you so much. In Jesus' name, amen.
Man, thanks,
And
guys.
No problem.
Thanks for being here, Forrest.
It's been a pleasure.
And I want to, as always, throw a special shout out and thank you to the band Caledonia for providing all the music you hear on our podcast today. You can find them at Official Caledonia on Instagram, or you can click on their Bandcamp link down in the show notes below to check out some of their music there. As always,
right.
Thanks for listening, guys.
Thank you. Love y'all.
Bye.
See you next week.
I long to stay in that state of twilight.